Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got the P365-380 from Sig Sauer. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. You'll find a link that you can sign up for Big Daddy Unlimited. They actually have things in stock and usually at a lower price than other places. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. This is the latest in the P365 lineup, and there's quite a few guns in the P365 lineup these days, but all of them are 9mm till now. This one is, the model is P365-380, and as you might wonder from that, it's chambered in 380 auto. So it is not the full 9mm. It's the same size gun. In fact, it's so much the same size gun that all of the holsters and accessories, anything you've got for the 9mm or that's made for the 9mm, other than of course magazines, will fit this. Speaking of magazines, it comes with two 10-round magazines. They're clearly marked 380, so you do have to use the proper magazines, and they hold 10 just like the regular flush mags in the 9mm. Of course, 380 being the same diameter as 9mm and just shorter doesn't give it the option for more capacity in the same footprint, but what you do get is a lighter, less recoiling gun. So when I put the magazine in there, the flush magazine, it comes with the two. So I just showed you the flush, and it also has a pinky extender, but it's the same capacity. As of the moment, the 12-round version like exists for the 9mm, I haven't seen for this. So as it sits right now, right at launch, two 10-round magazines come with it, and I'm not aware of extended capacity. Give it time. If they could do it for the 9mm, they'll be able to do it for the 380. For the most part, they're just a slightly different top end, and the follower will be different. But because the gun's footprint is the same, there should be no difficulty getting that done. The length of it is 5.8. The height is 4.2 with the flush magazine, and it's 1.0 inches thick. From a safety perspective, it is available with a thumb safety. I haven't seen one, but it is available with a thumb safety. That makes it just a hair wider. The safety is stick out. And it has, of course, an internal drop safety. And as consistent with other SIGs, it does not have either a hinged or a toggle in the trigger. These, so far, as best as I know, there haven't been reports of these firing when dropped, like the problem they had with the P320. But they don't have that inertial safety that many other guns on the market do. It has the SIG rail, serrations at the front and rear, just like any other P365. Now what does make this a little different from some of the other 365s is that it is optics ready. Both of the versions of the 380, the manual safety and the regular one that's here, are optics ready. There isn't a non-optics ready version of this particular model. And they also come with SIG Light night sights, which have kind of a ring around them and make them easy to see during the day, and of course the tritium vial for night viewing, and they are dovetailed so that they can be replaced. And notice the sights are outside of the optics plate. So if you do put an optic on it, you will retain the sights, and depending on your choice of optics, you may be able to co-witness if that's something that you want to do. The only indication that this is a 380 is actually the barrel stamping. There's no other indication on the gun. There's nothing, for example, doesn't have P365-380 indicated on the slide. So it's kind of interesting that there's nothing on here other than that barrel stamping. So if you've got a 9mm and a 380 version of this, you may have to look closely to make sure that when you pick one up, you pick up the right mags, the ones that'll fit with it. But other than that, it does work the same. One thing I did notice with this is significantly less recoil. The recoil in this, because it still has roughly the same weight as the 9mm, it's 15.7 ounces, the recoil was almost non-existent. So if you're looking for a lighter recoiling gun, this is definitely going to get that done for you. Shooting this at the range was actually pleasurable, and a lot of the little tiny 380s, 380 is often chambered in the little tiny, fit on the palm of my hand type guns, and those also tend to be rather unpleasant to shoot. This was very nice to shoot. It wasn't snappy at all. The recoil was very smooth. It was easy to get it back on target. The slide is not super light. It's not like a Smith & Wesson EZ, but it is lighter than the 9mm. So if you've got weaker hands, difficulty operating the slide, this definitely becomes an option for you. Now, to some extent, if you don't have any strength issues, if operating the slide or recoil is not a problem, you're probably going to lean towards the 9mm because you're not gaining anything really in the size factor with this. It's going to be, in fact, I've got one. I've got a 9mm, and you'll see that basically it's the same gun. But this 9mm, this is just the regular base P365, is not optics ready. But from a size and weight perspective, they're so close that you wouldn't choose this because you're getting a smaller gun. You would choose this because you're getting a little bit lighter, a little less recoil, and an easier to operate slide. So let's look at the trigger, because that's of course an important part of any gun. The P365s actually have a decent trigger. There's a noticeable amount of take-up, but it's nice and smooth. Then you're on the wall. There's just a little bit of a wall to pull through, and then it breaks. It has a decent reset. You can feel it and it clicks, and you're right on the wall. Then you pull through again, and it's not a super short wall, but it's a nice wall, and it's not excessively long, and it's smooth. And then there's the reset, and then if I let it all the way out, that would be all the way out. So it's got a decent reset. It's not a super short reset, it's not a super light trigger, it's not a super short wall, but it is a nice balance. It's not too heavy, too long, or any of that. So overall, it does have quite a nice trigger. And of course, with the lighter slide, it's so easy to operate. If you did need to manually cycle it, you wouldn't have any difficulty with it. Now, from a functioning perspective, we had a little bit of trouble in the very beginning with this. We had a couple failure to loads. Didn't want to go into battery or didn't want to load the next round. And it got to the point after we were doing a few mags that I actually bought some defense ammo, a little bit hotter ammo. Sometimes you cycle a gun with some hotter ammo. But I ran one more mag of range ammo before I tried that, and it was working flawlessly. So it needed 25, 30 rounds to break in just a little bit, and then it worked flawlessly after that. So if you get one of these, you may have a short break-in period with it. A very short break-in period. It was less than a box of ammo, and it'll work after that. The rest of the range session, with or without the defense ammo, it ran fine. Even shooting defense ammo in this, we had some Hornady defense ammo, and even shooting that, the recoil was nice. It was smooth. With an MSRP around $589, and it's kind of hard to get MSRPs because SIG doesn't really publish them, but that you kind of have to figure it out. I think you'll probably see these between $500 and $599 once they actually become widely available in the market. Right now, the ones you do find are kind of overpriced, or you see a really low price on them with the out of stock underneath it. Well, it's easy to price something low when you don't have it to sell. So we'll see what happens when the availability gets up and they get these out there. But my expectation would be they'll average somewhere in the $550-ish territory when you see them around. I think it's a good choice if you need it. So if you don't need less recoil, you don't need a lighter slide, just get the 9mm. It's a more powerful round, it's the same form factor, the same footprint. But if you've wanted a P365, but it wasn't something you thought you could handle either because of the recoil or the slide, now this opens you up to the P365, which overall is a pretty decent gun. Let's go ahead and take it down. So to take it down, you lock it back, then you flip this lever down, release it, and it should just come right apart, which it did. It's got full-length rails, both sides. So it's got a nice robust rail system. The fire control group is back here. Most of the frame, fire control group, most of those things are common between the two P365s. They may have changed some springs. For example, this recoil spring has a red ring around it. It's the same design as the 9mm overall dual captive recoil spring, but the weights are of course going to be different because it's 9mm. Here's your barrel, which is a 380. And it uses the same barrel blank as the 9mm, and of course it's the same diameter, so overall the only thing that's going to be different is the chamber. And you can see it's well machined and nicely rifled, so overall it's a well done barrel. The feed ramp is a little bit different. It's a little narrower than the 9mm, but I don't believe this had anything to do with the initial issues we had. I think that was just spring seating in. When you look at the slide, it's well machined. There's a few lightening cuts that have been done where they've drilled some holes to lighten the slide up a little bit for the lower powered round that is 380. But overall, typical SIG, everything is well machined. You'll see it's got a 380 indication there. And there's your drop safety plunger. So it's well done. SIG does do a nice job with machining and design of their pistols. Now, one thing that I did find with this is it does have one quirk. The takedown lever and the slide stop slide release relate to each other. So when I accidentally pushed up during cleaning, pushed up on the slide, it released this, and then I couldn't put it back down. If you ever get this in a situation where your takedown lever has gone back up and won't go back down, lift the slide stop slide release, and then it'll go down. Line it up. Easiest way is to lock it back, flip the lever, and you're back in business. So once you know about that one little tiny quirk, it's easy to work with, it's easy to maintain, and other than the very initial problems that they had with these when they first launched the 9mm, they resolved those. The line has actually been a very reliable lineup. So I have every expectation that the 380 version will carry forward that reliability. And again, if you have to put a half a box of ammo through it to get the spring seated incorrectly, then that's not a big deal. I'll give a lot of guns a very short break-in period without a problem. It is definitely a gun that you choose this if you need it. Otherwise, like I mentioned earlier, just get the 9mm. You're going to get everything that this offers if 9mm recoil and slide weight is not a problem for you. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to get notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Getter, kind of everywhere. And thank you.